All right. Hope everyone's doing well. Want to thank you guys once again for joining our Q&A session. We really wanted to put these together throughout the this whole COVID-19 epidemic to help investors navigate this kind of tricky time. Hope everyone's doing well. Want to thank you guys. Sorry, I've got an additional Q&A going on here on my YouTube live, but yeah, we wanted to put together a resource for you guys to be able to take advantage of Brian's expertise. Before we get started in our Q&A session, I wanted to thank Renometer. So Renometer's been really generous and has sponsored our podcast for several months now. And they're actually giving all of our listeners free rental reports. So if you guys are interested in taking advantage of rental reports, you guys can go to brianchavis.com/Renometer. This is one of our top rental comp softwares that we use. We use this in a lot of our trainings. We use this for Chavis Capital, and got some really cool reports that you guys can, create your own branded reports to work with investors or use them to kind of comp out your own deals. With Renometer Pro, you can actually comp up to 100 properties at once. So that makes it quite a really neat resource. But today, wanted to get into the Q&A session. And B, thank you so much for joining us, man. How you doing today, bro?
Good. A little tired, man. This had the stamina probably for a couple of weeks of isolation, but with a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, man, it's running around the house. It's it's beginning to take its toll. So I'm here, though. I'm here.
Excellent. Yeah. Hey, thanks for joining me, man.
Always
Well,
good.
so before we get into this, I want to introduce you real quick. I think people know who you are, but every once in a while, we always have someone on the line who doesn't really know who's speaking. So real quick, Brian Chavis, best-selling author of Buy It, Rent It, Profit, and The Landlord Entrepreneur. One of the only property management coaches is the only property management coach whose book appears in the U.S. Library of Congress for property management. This book is ranked number 4 on the National Association of Realtors top real estate books list. It's a worldwide bestseller, and it's one of the only books to appear as an official resource in Wikipedia under the definition of property management. So you're the definition of property management, B, which is great. And
Because I made the most mistakes.
But Brian has worked with several government housing authorities, real estate associations, real estate schools. He actually coaches investors through landlord and investor networking events. Also is a certified Keller Williams MAPS coach, and has worked with public housing authorities as well. So B, thank you so much for hanging out with us again in the studio and working with us for this Q&A.
Absolutely.
One of the things, so we put together this segment, how do I get started? How do I take advantage of a down market? Why were these a couple of questions that you kind of wanted to talk about? Or I know we've been hearing this a lot from some of our matrix students.
Yeah, it's mainly because it's it's the number one question I'm getting, on various different social media platforms. People who that message us through the various different distribution channels we have, that allow people to post questions. And, these are the questions that I see. And these are questions that, typically, anticipating people getting started and ramping up, looking for opportunities in a down market or what could be possibly a down market. A lot of this is still, we're still reading the tea leaves. But it's clearly it could be it's going to be a down market for some individuals that have over leveraged and kind of, I won't say misused leverage, but gambled a little bit. So you're going to see a lot of you're going to see some opportunities. So these are just natural questions people have. There's people on the sideline with money, and a lot of these folks are going to say, "Hey, listen, how do I get started? What do I do?" Where do you turn to? And it's tough because nowadays you don't really know who to turn to because everyone's an expert. When I started, this wasn't a popular subject. You want to get involved with multifamily. For me, it was easy. I just went down the hall and spoke to the owner. I went to the corporate office because I worked in the multifamily industry. And even then, there weren't gurus that you reached out to or had boot camps and things of that nature. But nowadays, there seems to be, a boot camp or an expert on every corner. And it's kind of tough, to really understand where you get started, because a lot of these individuals, they're great salesmen and women, but they really don't leave a lot of folks with, a step-by-step plan or a real clear understanding what it takes to be successful or get started. So I just thought this would be a good idea and a great platform for us to just put content out there that is really useful at the end of the day. And that's what this is about. Let's take the top questions. Let's figure out what those top questions that people have. We did this through the first month of the COVID-19 situation, where we just sat here and answered people's questions on operations and how they can navigate and work with their tenants. And now we're taking questions on how to structure and how to prepare and how to forecast opportunity. So, um, that's where we're at. Let's get in it.
Excellent, excellent. Well, yeah, I put together a few questions, and guys, please feel free to chime in. Um, so we've got our own theme, but you guys can ask questions about whatever you want. It's opportunity to be able to ask Brian anything. But what's the first step that I need to take to own my first apartment building? I know we've heard that a lot from some of our coaching clients. What's the first step that I would need to take to actually own a rental property?
Well, that question is, you hear that a lot, but that question really depends on the individual themselves.
Okay.
So who are the individuals? Do they have a background? Are they a licensed real estate agent or broker? Are they an investor? If they're an investor themselves, do they own property right now? So there's a lot of questions that actually, one has to ask themselves. So you might start out as an individual, like a lot of our students, who start out with owning, single family rentals, move into duplexes and quads, and then, move into the larger multifamily once they cut their teeth and get an understanding. You might start your career like I did and not have two nickels to rub together, but use your knowledge as an experienced operator to participate, either by starting your own property management company, using your management company or your asset management company to then, partner with general partners on deals and projects. That might be a way for you to get into this industry, to get right into the multifamily aspect of it. There's just so many different ways that an individual can actually get started in the industry. But for me, my experience came, just speaking personally, how I got started was using and leveraging my knowledge. And I still think at the end of the day, that's probably um, the most useful technique one could have, no matter what their background is. Not knowing everyone's background that's on this call tonight, I could just say a blanket statement would be get as much knowledge as an operator as you possibly can. Master the operations side of this, the 5 phases: acquisition, implementation, stabilization, growth, and the exit strategy. Master those 5 phases. So then you're able to use your knowledge, your skill sets to be able to open avenues, open opportunities, doors for you. For me, that's been the greatest, been the key to my success, working with individuals like Mark Willis, former CEO of Keller Williams, and relationships that I have with other, successful investors, Andrew Wright, Franklin Street. There's tons of people that, Leroy Moore, Tampa Housing Authority, 5th largest, most successful housing authority in the nation. Just, being able to have a certain skill set opens doors and presents opportunities for you to rub elbows with individuals that may perhaps have certain, uh, uh, there's individuals with money that are looking for individuals that will, that will operate the property, or that they could partner with to handle the operations. Typically, individuals with a lot of money or access to a lot of money are not really interested in the day-to-day operations. So this is where you use the leverage of your knowledge and your skill set to partner with those individuals. You do it one or two times, and then you're able to kind of cut your teeth yourself on your own deals. So, for me, that's kind of how I got started, is you leveraging my knowledge and my skill sets.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, thank you for that answer, man. Verlene has a question. Verlene, would you like to ask your question to Brian? All right, I'll ask for it. She said, how important is it to look for off-market deals versus going through a commercial broker?
Well, hopefully we don't. I don't. We have any commercial brokers on the call today, so I'll be nice. But ideally, if you can find deals off market, that's the idea. We have Joe Ebanks on our call here. He's director of operations and our director of acquisitions, and he'll tell you, if we can find off market deals. There's techniques and things that Joe will probably step up here and talk about that we use at Chavis Capital to find off-market deals. But yeah, the idea is that you want to do an off-market deal before you really try to find something, from the commercial ranks. There's a lot of, there's a lot of fees that are associated. There's a lot of bidding up prices when you're dealing directly with commercial brokers, and I get it. It's a business. But yeah, ideally, if you can find something off market, you want to deal directly with the seller yourself. But Joe, You got anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, that's kind of what I specialize in, is finding off market deals. We like to identify, obviously, distressed properties that we find, or maybe not even distressed, maybe just the owner doesn't have a management plan, doesn't know what he's doing and how to actually run the property. And there's several ways that we go about and through identifying these particular owners. And then we use the specific skills that I have on finding these deals, such as, skip tracing the owners, sending mailers, sending text messages out. All, with the brand obviously behind that allows owners to take us seriously the first time we call. And really get into, we don't really go with the, we're trying to buy you out cash. We want to offer them more of a management plan that can help improve their property. And maybe at the same time, we're able to step in with them into the project and provide, obviously, the skills that we have here at Chavis Capital to help them get a more efficient return for their property and stabilize it in a much better way going forward. So when you get into situations like the coronavirus that we're going through right now, everybody can sleep good at night. They're not really worried.
Right. And I think that's one of the golden, that's something that's really important to look at, is that we're not coming at it from a wholesale. We'll use wholesale techniques, but we're really coming at these owners from a consultant's perspective, and then building a relationship with these individuals, and then seeking opportunities to where we can either come in, stabilize properties, and you can see countless YouTube videos where we've come in, stabilized properties, and built relationships with owners. And then it leads to something like, hey, listen, what would it cost for you guys to help with operations? You clearly know how to bring value. And then, then from there, we try to, always trying to look to take at least 10% equity. Our position is anywhere between, starting out at 10%. We do that 10 times. We got 100% of something without ever putting our own money into the project. So we're just, again, utilizing our skill sets. Most of these operators are already suffering. So really, to explain it, it's almost like bar rescue. So if you've ever seen that TV show Bar Rescue, where the guy comes in, rescues the bar, that's exactly what we're doing. Again, you have to have a certain skill set to do that, but that's exactly what we're doing. We're coming in. There's a lot of individuals that are suffering. And really, to be honest with you, I would say 85% of the issues that go on are self-inflicted, meaning the operator is not properly screening. There's no qualifying criteria. There's no management plan. There's no way to execute. They're just winging it. And so we come in and like Bar Rescue, we set up the systems, bring in, maybe some of our key vendors, contractors, software, technology, whatever we need to bring in, clearly operations. And to do that, we can either charge a fee or we can take a percentage of ownership. And we're increasing the equity, the value, giving the opportunity for the individual to refi, maybe even buy them out, and we can slide in the first position. So There's a ton of different things we can do, but clearly off market is where you want to kind of start. It's tough, because a lot of folks, it takes a while to get that credibility. But yes, clearly, not to say that dealing with a commercial broker will not work. It clearly will work. But just understand that, they're in it to make a buck as well. And so, they're always going to have the loyalty is always going to be to the seller, no matter what. And that's to get the highest price, even if it doesn't really pro forma. So at the end of the day, there was something, 10 years ago, people bought what was known on what we call as an income approach. I haven't seen an income approach in quite some time. So that's why I'm saying I do feel like there's going to be some opportunities in the next 3 to 6 months, and being able to spot those opportunities, not to get ahead of our calls here, but our questions, but there's going to be some things you can do to find opportunities right now to where you're able now to finally get a project at a discount. So you may not have to actively have a database of buyer or sellers and look for off-market deals. I think a lot of off-market deals will surface and find their way to you versus you having to hunt those deals down. I think in this market, a lot of these deals will find their way to a lot of individuals that are actively out there promoting themselves as qualified buyers.
Got it. She had another question regarding that though. Like, if it's off market, where are you looking for these opportunities besides a site like LoopNet? And then she asked if are all LoopNet listings trash, or are they worth taking a look at?
I'll say this. It was told to me LoopNet is where all deals go to die.
Wow.
So, okay. I mean, I'll leave it at that.
I'll actually answer that for you, Brian. So I know I've actually talked to people that have got deals done on LoopNet because probably everybody's passed on it. It's the girl at the party that's drunk at the bar and nobody wants to talk to anymore. But eventually those owners get realistic with what their price is. I mean, you might have to follow them for over a year, but that'll happen. I know the main source that I use right now, CoStar, is a really good source. I mean, look, brokers have good deals. I mean, have deals out here. It's up to you to structure the deal so that it's good. I mean, I know I've learned that from Brian, because the deals that are out here, people want to sell. You just have to make sure that you're structuring the deal properly so that it works for you and your team and your systems. But another good place, like I said, I know there's areas like here where we're at in Tampa, where, I mean, you can drive around and you can see where, gentrification is happening or where things are starting to improve. I like Midtown as a good example where we're at, as well as West Tampa, places where people wouldn't send their dog to die a couple years ago, but now they're really coming around and these areas are really starting to grow and become very robust. So, I mean, you just really have to get out here. I mean, I don't know how many real estate people are really on the phone, like driving for dollars. I mean, I found several deals. I mean, even the deal I'm still working. Me and Brian, I've been working on with Brian for over a year and a half now, and I'm still on this guy because he's on the river, but he ain't ready yet. But he's gonna be ready one day, and I'm gonna make sure I'm the guy that he sells to.
Very true. I like that, man.
Yeah,
I think.
that's great.
I mean, just
that's why he's the director of acquisitions, because I give up.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, I throw my hands up with some of these guys, man. It's like, I've had to do the dog and pony show with Joe, and he's drugged me out to this guy that we're talking about, to his property, and I have to go out there and give a free clinic basically to build the relationship and build the rapport. It is a bit frustrating when you do it, but but that's why I recruited Joe. I know that's not my talent. That's Joe's talent. He will stay with it, and he will, he'll stay with it until the end. And that's what you really have to do. He's correct. It's clear that you have to kind of stay with it. And if everyone is, bypassing LoopNet, you might want to go where everyone else is bypassing. So the idea is that you got to just no stone unturned. And right. You just have to be ready for when the opportunity presents itself. And you have to, in this market, you really got to be strategic, because I think some of the mistakes I think individuals are going to make moving forward is a lot of individuals are going to make a mistake picking the wrong type of assets and picking an asset because they feel like they're getting it at a discount. And I think that's going to be a mistake. I'm not picking assets because we're getting them at a discount. I'm picking assets based upon demographics and psychographics. Who's going to be the most sustainable? Who's going to be the most resilient? That's really what I'm looking at. And I think, some individuals are going to look at what we're doing and go, they're going to feel like they need to, to find a property at a discount and forget the fundamentals of the CIOTA, strategic evaluation of a target area, and lose sight of that and focus again more on price. Oh, I got to find a deal. Oh, this is the deal. This guy's in trouble. Well, there's a reason why that guy's in trouble. So let's look at it. Is it operations, or is it because of the asset in general where it's located? There's some deals that you can bring me right now, even if it's at a discount in 3 to 9 months, and I still won't pick it up because I'm not confident on the demographics or psychographics of the area, even though the property possibly could be picked up, for a song. At the end of the day, there could be a time where we will do projects like that, but that's as you build up your inventory and you're able to take on a little bit more of a riskier asset, then you start bringing on those riskier type of assets once you've gotten a decent portfolio of performing assets that are resilient in certain markets, are really volatile proof. That's when you start bringing on some of the more riskier assets. But right now, as a startup company, those are assets that I probably would bypass.
So Brian, and let me just add to that. So, I mean, kind of what I just mentioned, if you read Brian's book, because I've actually read it a couple of times, look where you want to look is where is the growth happening? Where are the jobs? Where are a lot of jobs being created? Where are a lot of building permits being pulled? And those are the areas that you want to target and really go hard on those areas. Because if you do that, you can't go wrong.
Right. Yeah, that's your CIOTA. That's your CIOTA process. So you're looking and evaluating building permit activity. You're evaluating household income, average household size. Not one thing is going to give you the answer. It's a combination of all of those things. And then what I do is I look at those things and I forecast where we are. I was planning, because I was keeping my eye on the yield curve. I was planning on a recession even 2 years ago. And so, I was banking that we were due for a recession. The severity of it, I did not know, but going through the recession of 2008, I prepared for a prolonged recession. And so that's why I was looking for core assets, or assets in core markets and opportunities in core markets, and picking on operators who I thought weren't really that successful. I really knew what they were doing, but had the assets in those areas that were selling, because I figured I could swoop in, pay what they were looking to pay, what they thought was a fair price. They thought they were getting away with murder. But I felt because of their operations, they actually were leaving money on the table. And so there was opportunities for that within a certain period of time. And I took advantage of that in 2018. And you see me take down Park Plaza, and you see how resilient Park Plaza is right now. I'm shooting there and showing people we're leasing up. I banked on a demographic and a psychograph of a prospect tenant, and that prospect tenant has not let me down. And that's kind of the fundamentals. These are the fundamentals of understanding how to invest in multifamily. People think investing in multifamily is actually buying buildings, when it has very little to do with the building, and more so with the demographics and psychographics of a prospect tenant. That's where I start. That's how I start predicting. That's how I stress test. That's how I automatically know whether or not I feel like a property is going to be successful. Because I know as an operator, Nathan, stepping in, if you give me a certain demographic, I can anticipate turnover. I can anticipate wear and tear with maintenance. I can really anticipate what others can't, because they're not operators. The stress that some of these assets would undertake during a hold period. So you have to factor all those things in. But the main thing is really understanding that you're not buying buildings, that you're actually buying demographics and psychographics of your prospect tenant.
Right. Perfect. Hey, Rich has a question. Rich has his hand up. Rich, would you like to ask your question to Brian?
It's a question for Brian, and I guess your acquisition specialist, the gentleman who just spoke, and he was talking about the property on the water. My question was, is that a multifamily property, or was that a single family home, or how did you actually get in contact with that gentleman? And for Brian, the the property in St. Pete, was that an off-market deal?
Yes. So to answer your first question, there's nothing that I would look at that would resemble a single family home. I have no idea what single family home rentals. I've never invested outside of my own personal homes in single family. So I know nothing about the single family market. Joe could probably tell you about that with his wholesaling background, but I know nothing about single family. So I'm not a source of knowledge when it comes to flipping homes or wholesaling or anything like that. Downtown St. Pete was quasi off market. It was going on the market within 2 weeks. They came to me first and gave me the offer. They actually showed me a property. Their representative showed me a property that I wasn't interested in. And then she said, well, listen, I know you're a serious buyer. If I show you something, we sign a non-disclosure and I'll take you to the property. Of course, I signed the non-disclosure. She took me to the Park Plaza and I said, I'll take it. And I put it under contract that day. And I closed within I gave them 30 days in the contract and the PSA, purchase and sales agreement, but it closed in 15 days, paid cash for the building.
And to answer your question about the one on the river, yeah, that's a 48 unit or 50 unit. And the way I approached the gentleman is I just went and knocked on the office door. You cannot be shy in this business if you're trying to get a deal done. I went there actually several times. I finally got Brian over there. Brian took him to school a couple of times. He actually implemented a lot of the stuff that Brian
it's on YouTube.
Told him about. Yeah, it's on YouTube. And the gentleman still is struggling with the property. And I actually reached out to him probably about 2 weeks ago. He's getting nice and tender, I'd say. He should be ready to be flipped over here shortly. Season the other side.
I like that.
Yeah, Joe's got the patience for it. When I seen him, when I went out there and seen me use my, give all that knowledge, and it was raining. I remember the day, it's on YouTube. It was downpour and raining. I'm giving all this knowledge, and he goes and implements it the week later. And then he doesn't bring the deal to us. I threw my hands up, but Joe, to give him all the credit, he hangs in there.
Talk to that guy every month.
Talks to him every single month. Joe went out and bought him my books. I had signed. We did a dog and pony show. I'm signing the books, and
see, and that's a common mistake on what owners do. Because even though I gave him Brian's book, if he would have continued to actually read the book, he would have done a lot more stuff. He just implemented what Brian told him and stopped. And that's the problem with most of these, mom and pop owners.
Yeah. And that's the piggyback on that, guys. The next question, Nathan, how do I recognize this opportunity? This is a perfect segue into it. If you're really looking at and thinking about finding opportunities in multifamily, this is where you're going to find it. You want to look, the sweet spot's going to be, and again, this is kind of depends on who you are as an individual, but I can just kind of tell you where I feel where the sweet spots are going to be. It's going to be anywhere between 10 to 80 units. It's a pretty large sweet spot, but that's your sweet spot. So if you find a 20 unit, you can find a 15 unit, well, 10 to 80 units is going to be your sweet spot, especially with a lot of operators who either refinanced within the last 3 years or have owned and operated within the last 3 years. These are going to be a lot of the individuals with new debt that are going to be struggling. Even with the rates as low as they are, they employed and used too much leverage. So you want to kind of keep an eye out for those individuals. That I feel like, these are the individuals that are going to be charged. Even some institutional investors misused leverage. And, you see a lot of that with Grant Cardone, I think, talking about a lot of his properties. And now some of his limited partners are going on YouTube or shooting videos, basically saying how upset they are with the handling of the matter. But you're going to see a lot of the individuals do that, especially ones who brag a lot about getting those returns and those prefs to those investors. I mean, you have to think about it. If you're getting those type of returns, typically, especially if you're not a strong operator, typically the reason why and the way you get those stronger returns, not through operations, is through the use of leverage. Whereas a strong investor is not going to promise, these high returns. They're going to give you a modest return, but they're going to use techniques, skill sets, and operations to get those returns. Whereas a lot of other, unsophisticated investors will use leverage to get those returns, and sometimes it pays off, and sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's where you're going to see again a lot of these assets. There was some company out of New York did a report, and I'm probably messing it up, but they basically said if the interest rates ticked up 1%, you would see a lot of loans, over 50% of loans going to default, CMBS loans going to default. That tells you right there that a lot of people are over leveraged and they're abusing leverage. So if this company did their research and they said if the interest rates actually ticked up 1%, a lot of folks would be in trouble. That right there told me, this is a reputable company out of New York. That right there told me that, okay, there's a lot of debt, CMBS debt that's out there that probably, abuse leverage. And obviously, in tough times of operations. And we're going to really see, April wasn't the month to really see and predict. You can only use tea leaves in the month of April, but you're really going to see in the month of May, you're really going to start to see who's struggling. None of these properties are going to be able to withhold 2 months of having to negotiate with tenants and deal with evictions being paused and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. People are getting by with 1 month, calling the bank and getting forbearance and so on. So 2 months, it's gonna, this is where people are going to choke on their own. Unfortunately, on this bone that's
Right.
called COVID-19.
Hey, we've got a few questions starting to stack up here.
Okay.
Gary asked, what rent deposit app do you suggest landlords use so as to avoid giving tenants their account numbers?
Rent deposit apps, their tenants their account number. We use Buildium, Appfolio. There's probably tons of others out there that are free for smaller operators, but we use Buildium and Appfolio right now.
And then we had one gentleman had his hand raised. I don't know where he went. Okay. All right. Winston, you looks like you got a good question. Would you like to ask your question to Brian?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I currently have a deal under LOI close to your market. And my format is raising equity. However, the broker is requesting a POF. How do I handle that moving forward when this deal was under contract sometime last year with a different company and they couldn't raise the equity? So the broker now is insisting for a POF.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, and Joe will chime in because this is where Joe handles, but we show proof of funds because that's how we try to jump ahead of a lot of folks. Because if you can't show proof of funds, this is where we swoop in, show proof of funds. At the end of the day, and you're going to see that it's going to be more prevalent because there's a lot of folks now that go to these boot camps and all these events and they're saying, what you got to do is put properties under contract for practice, so a lot of folks are, a lot of these sellers are, and these sellers representatives are really, are really getting sick and tired of people getting into contract and backing out. But Joe, this is like really this is right in his lane. This is what he does for Chavis Capital. So I'll let him chime in and talk about some of the stuff because this is where Joe steps in for me and deals with the sellers and deals with a lot of this to take this off of my plate. So I'll let Joe speak on some of the techniques and things he's seeing out there as well.
Okay.
All right, so the first thing is I like to let the broker know right up front, look, we are syndicating, we are raising capital for this deal. So you actually are on offense instead of playing defense. Because once you put an LOI in and now they ask you to put up some money and you didn't address that elephant in the room in the first place, now you have an issue. Second, it also goes to having a good team because maybe if you have an attorney on your team that can write a letter or sign your LOI, or if you have someone that you've built a relationship down at the bank with, these are all built to your credibility. the biggest thing going into this is one, I think, is confidence and credibility. So if you can portray that right up front, it kind of alleviates a lot of the questioning of your character going forward. Because yes, everyone is kind of tiptoeing through this process because of 50 million people putting out LOIs that they can't back up, locking up properties, wasting owners and brokers' time, and not being able to pull a trigger. And lastly, I'd say, as a sponsor, you want to get a sponsor, someone like, Brian and me, people like that on your team. So when you do get a deal like this, and if we like the deal and you do need someone to back you up, we're here to back you up.
Okay. So should I talk to y'all guys some other time about this deal?
Offline, if you just want to email, Nathan, what's the email? info@chaviscapitalre.com.
Correct.
And send it over, and we'll take a look at it for you.
Okay, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, we got a question from Sean as well. Sean, would you like to ask your question?
Oh yeah, I'm in the North Carolina area. Looking in the Raleigh, Charlotte area. I wholesale myself, looking to get into the multifamily and building my team as well. So I just wanted to see if you all had any area that y'all were looking at in the North Carolina area. Just wanted to get y'all opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you bring an opportunity to us, obviously I like the core markets. I like the urban, those downtown markets. I don't foresee that changing even in the midst of COVID and coming out of around the corner of COVID. I really see that I still feel confident in the urban markets. I do hear some chatter like, oh, there's going to be a flee to the suburbia, especially with COVID-19 and all the hot zones being urban markets. I'm not buying that. And if everyone else is buying that, I mean, I hope the heck they are, hook, line, and sinker, because then I'm gonna come in, I'll be right there in downtown smiling. Yeah, so if you find something in that urban market, I'm not really big on the rural areas. I'm not really big on demographics that kind of cater to the lower moderate income levels right now. Those are the assets that I feel like we would pick up once we build up our portfolio of core assets that we know would perform for us, where we can pick up riskier assets. Obviously we know those riskier assets will pay dividends and higher returns, but higher returns mean more risk. And right now, Chavis Capital is not into riskier assets. We're into fundamentals. We'll allow Wall Street to continue to do what they're doing and provide all the risk and volatility, and we'll just continue to provide stability. And that's kind of our brand and our pitch. I'd say, if you have something that looks like an opportunity, you still always want to kind of deliver it to us and show, because it may be something that I'm not interested in, but obviously you can see we have a large brand and a large presence. So I'm sure there's maybe some of our students that would like it or be willing to take a little bit more risk and look at those opportunities. So the ideas of the Multifamily Matrix, which is our coaching and consulting platform, is, join that Multifamily Matrix, get in, because this is where you're going to be around other individuals like myself. So it doesn't always have to be me personally buying a deal or looking at it. So you might find someone right in there that will help you or even partner with you on a project. So.
Yeah, and I'll say as well too, Sean, in that area where you're at, the Charlotte, Durham, Raleigh area, I mean, that's the psychographics and demographics you're looking for. It's just been really overpriced, but it's about to get really good pricing coming here shortly.
Yeah.
So I'd keep your eyes. You're in a good market in that area.
Yeah, keep your eye out within the next 3 to 9 months. Within the next 3 to 9 months, everyone should be focusing right now.
Yeah, third to fourth quarter is the spot.
Yeah, okay. You want to really start looking at within the last three. Let those defaults and those banks, you're going to start to see this is where you need to start getting your mailers out, getting on social media, calling those owners. If you have property management skills, this is where you want to start pitching your skill sets and speaking to a lot of owners and making phone calls and building relationships. This is the time to make hay right now.
Right. And one more question: would y'all ever consider like taking some of your own money to put down? Like me personally, I'm going through a process. I sold a couple of the houses that I had. I just actually sold four this week, and just taking some of that money to put back into it to get everything kind of lined up. Getting the foundation of it kind of situated, and uh, forming a company and all of that. Would you even consider doing that right now, or kind of lay low with that?
No, I mean, we've put our own money in. I have and will continue with certain projects. I'm at the point now where I don't necessarily have to use my own money personally within Chavis Capital, because we do raise enough through others and limited partners. But to get to that point, not everyone has a brand that they can fall back on and utilize limited partners. So sometimes you will have to pick up an asset yourself or use your own money. That's where I would probably look at the 8 unit, the 10 units. Depends on how much what we're talking about here. This is where I would probably pick up a duplex or something of that nature. This is what you can cut your teeth on utilizing these techniques. There's a guy named Rick Scott in here on this call, and Rick will tell you he does duplexes and quads right now. This is what he's cutting his teeth. He's mastering, using, and implementing all my systems in his duplexes. He's a guy that I would do business with because I see him. I watch him use my systems. And if you can manage 2 units, you can manage 20. If you can do 20, you can do 80. And if you can do 80, you can do 180. And if you can do 180, you can do 1,000. So it doesn't really matter. The systems become easier with the more critical mass. They become more difficult with the 8 and 10 units. They become even more difficult with single family. That's why I never would touch that. But the idea is the more systems, the more critical mass, the more units you have, the easier it is to operate. So a gentleman like that has a duplex and quad and is utilizing my systems to run it, I know he's cut his teeth, and I know he understands the importance of operating systems, because you really have to be good at operating systems when you're dealing with 2, 8, anything around that 22 unit, that 40 unit. You really don't get to benefit from the economies of scale until you get to around 100 units. That's because the formula is for every 100 units, you're allowed in the payroll or allowed in the operating income, 1 staff member. So it's 1 staff member for every 100 units. So you really don't benefit from the economies of scale till you hit that 100 unit type. So until then, you're doing a lot yourself. So you really need to be strong in the operation. So if I had money, Sean, that's what I'd look at. I'd look at a 4 unit, 8 unit, or whatever you can afford. Could be, you might can be able to afford a 10 or 20 unit. That's what I would be looking at. And then I would learn how to operate that. And then that's where you're going to build your brand and your skill set to be able to then scale up. And after that, you'll never have to use your own money again. And that's where you want to get to a point where you never have to use your own money. You're utilizing your knowledge and your skill sets. People are coming to you to cut checks because of what you know.
Right. Yeah. One more question. When it comes to institutional capital, do y'all work in that area as well? Do y'all raise funds from institutional capital?
I haven't raised funds from a private equity firm yet. It's all been limited partners. I've consulted for a lot of private equity firms, but I haven't used private equity money per se in any of my deals. Not to say I won't, but there's a lot that comes in with that. There's a lot of, not that our documentation is not spot on, but there's a lot of expectations and a lot of forced expectations. So it's just, it has to be the right fit. Because when you start dealing with institutional money, you want to make sure that you, as a general partner, you keep control, you maintain that control. So a lot of it becomes, me as a general partner, them as the private equity or the institutional capital, being able to, understand who really at the end of the day, who's the boss. So a lot of them, when they put money into a project, they're looking to really dictate. And with us,
Right.
I'm not really looking, I'm not in that position where I have to be dictated upon, thank God. at the end of the day, are there some guys out there that we would love to deal with? Probably yes. The answer is yes. But it does have to be a good working relationship.
All right. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. So info at Chavis Capital
RE.com.
All right.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, Nathan put it in the chat, guys, if you want to see the email address where to send your deals and how to get some help from us.
Perfect. We got a question from YouTube, B.
Right, YouTube question.
Il Deuce. How do you feel about owner financing for small multifamily units?
Love it. Do it all day, 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. So yeah, so we have a script. So stay with me here. My fundamental truth for all you wholesalers out there, and we're going to do something with me and Joe are going to do something probably this week on wholesalers working in multifamily and how to make that transition. So my theory is, and Joe feels like it's a solid theory, and he would be the one to know since he runs a very successful wholesaling business, is that you don't approach owners like myself, operators of multifamily of any size, with the wholesaler mentality or the wholesaler script. Throw that thing out. What you do, you want to make the same type of call, but you want to approach these individuals as a consultant. I'll repeat, as a consultant. You want to come in and call them and ask them, hey, look, is there any area that you're struggling in? I'm so-and-so. I'm Brian Chavis. I'm a certified consultant under Brian Chavis Coaching and Consulting. I'm really here to help. I'm just reaching out to all small owners. We know it's a difficult time right now in a lot of markets for operators, and we're here to help. So, is there anything that we can help you with? We can link you up with eviction attorneys in your area. We can help you with operations. We can help look at, if you need to get a hold of a solid lease or qualifying criteria, we can really help you. And you're just making this phone call and reaching out to these owners and trying to figure out what it is they need and get them answers as a consultant. And then you build a relationship with them. And then once you start figuring out, hey, look, it sounds like you're just frustrated with this property. It sounds like you really want to get rid of it. Yeah, if I could get rid of it, of course I'd get rid of it. I can help you out there as well. As a consultant, I'm also able to partner you with someone that could probably come in and then that's when you hook, line, and sinker. That's when you come in and introduce your opportunity or your true firm, which is the private equity firm that you have, i.e. Chavis Capital. And then we swoop in, we ask for opportunities, and we give them a questionnaire. And in that questionnaire, basically are they interview. And sometimes we can do an interview over Zoom. We just speak to the owner, really find out, hey, look, I have a spreadsheet, and I don't know if I can share my screen. Nate, can I share my screen?
Let me see.
Hey, Brian, it should be at the bottom. It gives me an option to share mine.
Okay, at the bottom.
Mouse in the green in the center there, it should say. But yeah. Yours might look different than mine.
Yeah, I'm on a tablet, but if it can, let's see. Virtual background, raise my hand, screen sharing. And let's see. Share content. All right, I'm gonna ask permission from Nathan. Nate, you cannot start screen share while other participant is sharing. So you're sharing, Nate. You would have to give me control.
All right.
Just want to show somebody. So what would happen is Joe would schedule a call. All right, let's see, screen. Start broadcast, screen. I don't know. Can you guys see my screen? Can you see this?
Yes.
What do you see?
It's looks like it's a picture with you. I know it says Brian Chavis.
No. Do you see the Excel spreadsheet?
Brian, it's showing the picture that you have on the front of your tablet with you sitting on the couch.
Oh, okay. That ain't gonna work. All right, hold
you
on.
look comfortable.
Thank you. Hold on one second. Kind of, these are all the deals. All of our deals. Hold on, I'm trying to see. Hey, Nate, can you pull up the Excel spreadsheet, sir? Can you pull up the Excel spreadsheet of the how I grade the property?
Yeah, let me see what I can find.
It should be one of the first ones. I just sent it over to you not too long ago. So anyway, so then Joe or whomever we have making our phone calls, they're talking to the owner. And then once I get involved, once they're like, yeah, you know, this property is just getting a little out of, just like this guy with the 40 units, you know, he's over his head. And so what I do is I came out and I evaluated. He didn't understand what I was doing. I came out, he thought I was giving him some advice. And I was, but I was really out there evaluating. So I was taking my own notes and looking at where he was, his deficiencies. And so I used a spreadsheet to score and rate his property. And I gave him advice, of course, and helped him out. But I was scoring his property and telling Joe, yeah, this is a great deal, and gave it these high marks. And so the next thing, then Joe reached out to the guy and said, hey, would you be interested in owner financing? Would you be interested in bringing someone as a partner? And then that's when these discussions started to happen. We felt that we were really getting we were really like making some progress, but I think there was multiple different issues that they were dealing with that kind of, you know, got in the way. But ultimately, that's what we're there to do. Is it wasn't necessarily wholesaling techniques as far as it was, or as much as it was us coming in as a consultant, listening to their problems, them telling us what their issues were, me giving them some advice, but also looking at the opportunities in that project and scoring that property and telling Joe, yeah, this out of a 1 to 10, this is a 7. Let's stay with it. That's why Joe to this day is still with it, because it scored high, like a 9 out of 10, because we felt like we could really get in there and bring value. And so at the end of the day, absolutely, if you can get in there and negotiate owner financing, but you're not going to do that without showing some sort of credibility and knowledge. It's going to be very difficult if you come at these individuals with that wholesaling approach. You know, you may not get past a phone call. You know, you really want to come as a more like a consultant and wearing that consulting hat, let those walls come down a little bit, and then you start building that relationship with them.
So Brian, let me say this, because explain to everyone how people try to call you and try to get you to sell like they're wholesalers.
Yeah, it doesn't lie. Yeah. So, and that's my point. And that's why a lot of the knowledge that I have is based upon how I feel. You know, I get called all the time, you know, with people asking me, hey, you know, trying to talk to me about Park Plaza and things of that nature. It just doesn't last. You're not going to really get an operator, an owner on the phone and really get them in the same type of conversation as you would someone wholesaling their home. It's a different conversation. You have to be much, you know, you have to be able to you have to be able to, in your head, be able to do a back of the envelope evaluation, determine pro forma, make your assumptions, anticipate cap rates, returns, you know, the value of the asset, what it would take to operate. You have to kind of be able to do that on the back of the envelope type of valuation. You have to have strong understanding of the market. You have to have a real strong understanding of operations, property management, to be able to do it and handle and keep them on the phone. Because the only reason why you keep them on the phone or even get them to call you back again or schedule a meeting with you is because they feel like you can really help them out, and you can. And we do a lot of times. We helped out tons of individuals and we really haven't seen anything from it, but we have a great relationship and they go into the database. And now Joe has them in this tickler file, and eventually it does pay off.
Yes, sir. Because look, that's the main reason why you want to approach them in a different way. I mean, and I actually picked up this technique from Brian from this particular property we're talking about, because I mean, we must have talked to them a year and a half ago, maybe. But that's how you have to approach it. Because I know when Brian gets calls and people try to talk to him over the phone or send him postcards and letters, well, you just throw them in the garbage, don't you, Brian?
Yeah.
And they'll reach out to him, skip trace him, and find him. I mean, he might give them 10 seconds on the phone before he hangs up. So that's not the approach that's going to work, like how you do like regular residential real estate. You have to come at the approach from the sophisticated investor that owns these type of properties or these type of assets. That's the only way you're going to get your foot in the door to actually start the conversation.
Yeah.
All righty, cool. So let's look at the next question because I think Nate's looking for that paperwork.
Got a question from Nana.
There you go. Okay.
Nana, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, hi. Hi, Brian again and the team. Thank you so much again for your live broadcast. It's very cool. I just have a question about Milken Institute list. What do you guys think about this? Is this a good kind of starting point before reviewing a specific targeted area, but at least figure out which cities are performing better, and then after maybe identifying a couple of targeted areas, couple of cities, then going and doing research on specific areas?
All right. Can you break that question down again for me real quick? Say that again.
Yeah. So I just wanted to feel your opinion about Milken Institute list for best performing cities, where there is information how cities are performing, meaning if they're good jobs, if they're jumping this population. Do you guys ever use Milken Institute list to identify any targeting areas?
Yes. We use, the CIOTA process encompasses all of, we use various different platforms and individuals research from Marcus and Millichap to CBRE to third-party research companies that you pay for to help identify markets. And yes, we do exactly that. We look at the overall economic health, their fiscal, their ability to, to also budget, as far as the city's deficit itself, their balance sheet. We're looking at the overall health. There's tons of things that we look at, as we enter into a market. But the main thing is everything that's in that CIOTA, building permit activity, household income, average household size, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's wherever you can get that information. A lot of it you can get online for free, to be honest with you, these days. Some of the reports do 90%, if not, 95% of the work for you. So paying for some of these reports is still quite, useful. But at the end of the day, I still feel like, you can get a lot of that research information directly off of websites of municipalities that you are interested in.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Then we got a question from Celeste. Celeste, would you like to ask your question to B? All right. It's the question was how much additional reserve should investors put aside now with lenders becoming more strict with their lending criterias?
Good question. That's going to really depend on the asset itself. The lenders are going to have their own due diligence. They're going to have their own requirements. The amount of money you set aside for capital reserves. But a lot of the capital reserves that you set aside are really going to be contingent upon the asset itself. How old, when you walk the asset. So what happens is, and again, I don't have those spreadsheets to show you guys in front of me, but when I walk and I do my due diligence, I'm walking with the contractor, within the 30-day due diligence period. There's two types of due diligence that goes on. There's a forensic audit of all the accounts, and then there's a physical due diligence of the property and the actual units themselves. That's when I walk with the contractors. When I'm walking with the contractors, with Joe is with me, that's what we're doing. We're getting those numbers. Joe is pulling those numbers, getting those numbers together, compiling those numbers, and then they meet with me along with the property manager, and then we come together to be able to really build out our underwriting model for our final offer. But at the end of the day, understanding what needs to be held in reserves, I usually hold until I get into I have a formula. When you take our courses, I have a whole chart that shows you exactly, 150 for each unit for X, Y, and Z, 200 for marketing, this, whatever it is, all the way down. You can kind of see some generalized standards, but ultimately, that's just to do a back of the envelope evaluation of the asset. But ultimately, all of that changes once I get to the property, sit and work with the contractors, and they come back and they tell me the actual physical condition of the property and their recommendations. Then I tweak the underwriting, because at the end of the day, I might come back. What I offered you in the LOI, typically, to be honest with you, is probably 90% of the time not what I'm going to give you. So I'm usually going to go into the property during due diligence, evaluate it, come back and say, hey, listen, this is what I found. So either you take this amount off, or here's my new offer.
Perfect. Hey, thank you for that answer, man.
Did that make sense? Does that? I just want to make sure he or she. All right. Did that make sense to them?
Thank you. Yep.
Okay. Over here multitasking myself, maintenance guys messaging me. Call me. I'm like, Jesus Christ, if the building ain't burned down, leave me alone. If it's burned down, you better call the fire marshal. Don't call me. That's why we got insurance.
Exactly. Well, it looks like we're approaching 9 o'clock, and guys, just want to thank you guys for joining us for this Q&A. We're going to keep things going every Tuesday. We're going to switch up the format just a little bit. Starting next week, we are going to do a live recording of our podcast, By the Block with Brian Chavis. We also want to include you guys in the action, so we'd love for you to continue to join us on these calls, because at the end of the podcast, we're going to open it up for our Q&A. So we're going to do our podcast recording, 15-20 minutes, and then we'll get into our Q&As. You guys can ask questions pertaining to the actual podcast, or you can ask questions based on what you guys are working on. Once again, we really want to help you guys own multifamily property here in 2020, and want to make sure that we also invite you guys to join us in the Multifamily Matrix. Every single Thursday, we have private coaching sessions. Shout out to Jeff. We just joined the Matrix. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to speaking with you, man, and helping you grow your portfolio. So we've got over 130 pre-recorded videos that we put together. We've got our group coaching sessions. You're going to be able to partner and team up with other investors, other like-minded individuals, access to weekly trainings, discounts on services. And so for founding members, it's only $100 a month, which is great value to be able to work alongside Brian and his team. You already see Cashman in here answering questions. He's part of the Matrix team. We've got syndication attorneys. Myself, I'm a digital marketer, so I can help you with a lot of your with your branding and websites and so on and so forth. So there's quite a powerful infrastructure within the Matrix, and we hope that you guys will join us and just continually brush up on your knowledge in 2020. All right. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. And B, thank you so much for being in the studio, brother.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Nate.
Hey, take care, guys. Have a great week.
Be blessed. Be
Thanks,
safe.
everybody. Have a good evening.
You
Be
too.
safe, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Take care.